Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos. I'm Vanessa Hauc, the co-founder of Sasha Mama and the director of Planeta Tierra at Noticias Telemundo. And I'm delighted to share with you our Sasha Mama's campaign, The Ocean, the Great Provider. Our hope is that after you see our series, you will reframe your relationship with the ocean and realize that we depend on our oceans for our healthy environment, for the stability of our planet. Millions of people depend on it for its survival, jobs, food, income, and of course, the ocean is an amazing source of connection, well-being, and happiness. Today, we will explore how the ocean provides for families and business that depends on fishermen to survive in the Sunshine State, specifically the restaurant business. I would like to invite to the conversation Luis Garcia. He's the owner of Garcia's restaurant that is really an institution in South Florida, and he's featured in our story today. Hola, Luis.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien, thank you. Thank you for being with us. And we'll also have with us Dr. Rachel Silverstein. Dr. Silverstein received a PhD in the Department of Marine Biology. Thank you so much, Dr. Silverstein, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm thrilled to be here.
Welcome both. Okay, so let's first see the story and then we'll have the conversation.
Nuestro planeta es un planeta azul. Los océanos cubren casi el 75% de la superficie de la Tierra. Son vitales para nuestra supervivencia. Nos ofrecen alimento, experiencias, alegrías y son la fuente de ingresos de millones de personas en el mundo. Todos dependemos del océano. Él nos proporciona la mitad del oxígeno que respiramos. Absorbe 50 veces más dióxido de carbono que nuestra atmósfera y da vida al 80% de los seres vivos del planeta.
Mi nombre es Vanessa Hauc y ando en busca de aquellos héroes cuya misión es proteger el océano, el gran proveedor.
Son las 5 de la mañana y Juan y Jorge salen a pescar en la bahía de Miami. Mientras la ciudad duerme, los dos pescadores van por la pesca del día, como lo hicieron sus padres y sus abuelos. Hoy estamos frente a 60 años de tradición.
Hola Juan, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien,
Bien,
bienvenida.
gracias, gracias. ¿Y a dónde vamos a ir ahora?
Vamos a ir a pescar.
Perfecto, vamos.
Tristemente, cada vez es más difícil encontrar pescadores locales en el estado de la Florida. Juan es uno de los que se aferra a su profesión.
¿Hace cuánto pescas?
Bueno, yo desde que nací me he criado a la orilla del mar.
¿Naciste pescador?
Para mí es algo bonito porque es a lo que me dedico toda la vida. Es el diario mío. Salir todos los días temprano en la mañana, ver el amanecer, que es muy lindo, salir el sol.
¿Qué significa el mar para ti?
Todo. Es la vida. Sin el mar no hay vida. El mar hay que vivirlo, hay que sentirlo.
Pero el mar está cambiando. Se espera que para el 2100 las temperaturas del océano aumenten entre 1 y 4 grados centígrados, afectando la vida marina, la cual provee un 16% de toda la proteína que consumimos los seres humanos.
Sí, ha cambiado mucho. Hace 3 años atrás se pescaba, había peces, había camarón, ahora no hay nada, todo se ha perdido.
La industria de la pesca es vital para la economía del país. Cada año contribuye con 212.000 millones de dólares en ventas y emplea a más de 1.7 millones de personas.
3 años atrás uno llegaba aquí, tiraba y cogía camarón 1.000, 3.000 libras. Y ahora te metes una noche entera para coger 20 libras. Es decir, que se perdió. Ya se están retirando muchos pescadores por eso, porque no da la cuenta con lo que gastas en madera, en todo, no da. Y no hay langosta, no hay nada, todo se está perdiendo.
Por eso, practicar la pesca de forma sostenible es esencial. Esto implica dejar suficientes peces en el mar para que estos puedan reproducirse, regresar al agua a los más pequeños, respetar los ecosistemas marinos y garantizar que las personas que dependen de la pesca puedan vivir de ella.
Nosotros pescamos con nazas que son de madera, que si pierdes una se pudre al mes, ya están podridas.
Claro.
Se deshacen en el mar.
No afecta al océano.
No afecta al océano.
¿Y qué pasaría si no pueden vender lo que pescan?
No se puede pescar, nos quedaríamos sin trabajo, porque ¿a quién le íbamos a vender?
Ellos le venden la pesca a la familia García, que lleva 60 años administrando restaurantes de comida de mar. Hoy vengo a ver por qué es importante para ellos comprarle a los pescadores locales, como nuestro amigo Juan. Creo que es aquí.
Hola.
Hola Luis, ¿cómo estás?
Vanessa? How are you?
I'm great.
I'm happy to have you.
Gracias por recibirnos.
No, my honor. Thank you. Estas son todas las fotos de mi familia.
Es un restaurante familiar, ¿no es cierto?
Sí, yeah, 100%. Este restaurante es el sueño de mi papá.
¿Te emociona cuando hablas de eso?
Ahora más que nunca, porque soy padre. Entonces, uno piensa de los sacrificios que hicieron los padres de uno.
Sí.
A mis padres le quitaron el negocio que tenían en Cuba, el gobierno se lo quitó.
¿Un restaurante también?
Un restaurante y barcos de pesca. Y el concepto de ellos en Cuba era que el barco de pesca llegaba al puerto y ahí el público llegaba y ellos se lo freían ahí, inmediatamente se lo comían en el momento ahí y ese nombre se le decía los paraditos, porque comías parado delante del barco. Y entonces mi padre...
No podía haber un pescado más fresco que ese, ¿no? Del agua al plato.
Brillante.
Después de perderlo todo, llegó a la Florida en busca de una mejor vida.
Empezaron el negocio y a través del tiempo habían un pescador y después eran 2 pescadores, después eran 4 y después eran 6. Llegó hasta 11 pescadores.
Siguiendo los pasos de su padre, Luis trabaja con pescadores locales que pescan de forma sostenible.
Te voy a preguntar, ¿cuántas personas tú conoces que quieren ser pescadores?
Ninguna.
No. Los hijos de mis pescadores no quieren ser pescadores. Entonces, esa generación como que está muriendo, como es un arte...
Está desapareciendo.
Sí.
Un oficio tan esencial como lo que provee el océano.
95% de que yo vivo viene del mar. Todo lo que es proteína viene del mar. La langosta, el pescado, cangrejo, camarón, scallops, mozzos, clams. Entonces, mi responsabilidad sobre el mar es un poquito más importante.
Con el aumento en las temperaturas, los océanos son cada vez más cálidos. El agua caliente blanquea a los corales, que son casa del 90% de la vida marina. A menos corales, menos peces.
Sé que fueron a pescar. Una de las cosas que quería era que probara la langosta que se pescó hoy.
O sea que esto mismo lo pescamos hoy, gracias.
Eso mismo lo pescamos hoy. Y una de las gran cosas que tengo yo y lucho yo es proteger esa industria para que cuando vengan a García puedan comerse la langosta del día.
Así, Luis mantiene vivo el legado de su padre. Un compromiso por garantizar que las futuras generaciones también podrán disfrutar de lo que nos brinda el océano, el gran proveedor.
Y estoy orgulloso de eso.
Luis, first of all, thank you so much for having us at your restaurant. It was great to see the work that you work, and it was truly inspiring to see how you're honoring your father's vision, protecting the fisherman, protecting the ocean. Why it's so important for you to have a sustainable restaurant?
Well, I feel like it's important. It's a responsibility that I took on when my father passed away, and I feel a tremendous amount of pressure and responsibility to leave my place better for my children than my father left it for me. And there's the responsibility to keeping those guys working, my staff. I just feel that burden. I don't know if other people feel it, but I feel the burden of leaving it in a better place than when I got it.
Oh, that's so beautiful, and I wish we all could feel that way. To leave the planet better than the way that we found it. It was amazing to share that
Thank you very much. I hadn't seen it. I saw it a little bit, and I saw it now for the first time. I hate seeing myself on TV, so I tried not to watch my portion of it. Now you made me watch it, and so I appreciate it.
Well, you did great. You did amazing.
Well, my Spanish leaves a lot to be desired.
No, it was awesome, and the power of the story is what counts. Thank you, Luis. Rachel, when we were talking to the fishermen, they were mentioning that in the past couple of years, there has been a significant decrease in the number of fish and lobster that they got. What is happening to our oceans?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And what people often don't realize is that the fish that we're eating in restaurants that are living in the ocean, they also need habitat or a place to live or a home where they can safely feed and have their babies and grow up. And a lot of the habitat of the ocean is being lost. So in Biscayne Bay, where you were early in the morning in the beautiful story, we have lost a lot of the seagrass and the mangroves. And the seagrass and the mangroves provide a place for fish to live in and around. And we've been losing the seagrass and the mangroves because of poor water quality. So we've been having a lot of pollution go into Biscayne Bay, and we've reached a tipping point where we're starting to lose the seagrass. And just in the last 5 or so years, we've lost over 80% of the seagrass, especially in the northern part of Biscayne Bay near the Miami River, where Garcia's is located. And this is a problem for the water quality in the bay and how clear and beautiful it is, and people want to live near it and visit it and enjoy it. And also for the fish and other wildlife that live in and around it. And then just offshore Biscayne Bay, we have our beautiful Florida Reef Tract, the only nearshore coral reef in the continental United States. And that's another place where so many thousands of creatures and critters live in and around coral reefs, that they're not only animals themselves, but they are like the trees in a rainforest, and that they create the whole habitat that support the rest of the life that live in those areas. So it's really important to remember the water and what's in the water, and also what's in the habitat, and try to protect both as we're thinking about what's degrading the environment and resulting in the loss of fish.
Wow, that's impressive. 80% is a very high number. Luis, Florida is known as being the fishing capital of the planet. Commercial and recreational fishing have been long an economic driver for the state, creating billions of dollars in local sales. More than 200,000 Floridians make their living on fishing. How are these changes in the ocean affecting your business and the people that work for you?
So there has been a decline over the last several years in how much lobster and seafood we have caught off of our commercial boats. We work directly with the Florida Wildlife Commission. So we report everything to the commission. We report how much we catch, how often we go, the size of the lobster that's being caught. They come to our boats, and there's a reason for that Florida Wildlife Commission to be there, and we try to abide by those rules and do it responsibly. We do it responsibly. I think it's going to affect in that some people are going to lose their job, or some people are going to change profession because it's declining in a way that perhaps there's maybe too many commercial fishermen, or maybe there's too many lobster traps. I know that last year or the year before that, they changed the size of the stone crab. What the limit was, the size of the limit. So they're constantly making changes to, I guess, balance out the scarcity of certain specimens. So, as a human race, we have a responsibility to do things properly. And certainly the more we do it responsibly, the better it is that those species are going to bounce back. So yes, we certainly have a huge responsibility. And the more they do bounce back, the better chances of those people keeping their jobs, whether they're, taking people fishing, on charter boats, or they're commercial fishermen like we have, or even people that work in the restaurant businesses that are, supported by local seafood places. So I think we have a huge responsibility to handle that.
Definitely, and there is so many industries that depend on that. When we talk about the Florida coast, it's unbelievable, the number. Dr. Silverstein, what are the main challenges for Florida to protect our coral reef and our fish, this industry?
Yeah, well, Florida and like many places around the world are being affected by climate change, as you noted in the story very beautifully. The temperatures are rising in the ocean, and the ocean is also becoming slightly more acidic. And that's actually dissolving the coral, because the coral needs a different ocean chemistry than we currently have now to grow. And so and because it's warm and the chemistry of the ocean is changing, we've been really rapidly losing coral reefs as well. And again, if we lose the coral reefs, we lose the fish that depend on them. And so I think a major challenge for Florida is that we are experiencing climate change and also sea level rise. So we have actually the higher tides of 6 more inches than we did even in 1996. And that's caused over 300% more flooding events. And with flooding, we'll not only have, flooded streets, but we also have more contamination getting into our waterways as a result of that flooding. So we're getting a lot of the impacts of climate change on the coral reefs, and then also on our bays, like our seagrass, from the additional pollution, as well as, of course, having flooded streets and other problems from sea level rise as well. And in Florida, we also have major water management issues. So when we changed the drainage system of the Everglades ecosystem, instead of having fresh water flowing, in a really smooth and regular way across the land, getting into the ground where we get our drinking water from, and then coming out into Biscayne Bay and Florida Bay, we've artificially dredged all of these channels, and it's changed where the water flow is. And so we now have very different patterns of where the fresh water is moving in the state of Florida. And so some areas are getting too much fresh water and other areas are getting not enough. And Biscayne Bay is one of those areas that's getting not enough. And the water that we are getting is too polluted. And so we have this really unique, very engineered water delivery system in Florida that's changed how our bay and our ocean receive water and function as an ecosystem for all the fish and other wildlife that depend on it.
It's unbelievable, because when we think about it, Florida is a state that depends, deeply on the ocean and the well-being of the oceans, a healthy ocean. So many people, millions of people depend on it. Do you think, Luis, that people are aware of how important is the ocean as a provider for people here in Florida?
It's sad for me to say this, but I don't think people are aware. And I'm going to go further. I'm going to say that I see a lot of pollution that is just neglect, like just horribly neglectful behavior. And I just don't get it. I don't understand it. If you go down the Miami River, which I happen to live on the river, it's my life. I spent hours and hours all my life since I was a child. I look at the river sometimes and I'm deeply disturbed. And I know that a lot of it could be avoided because it's just terrible human behavior. And I know that our county government hires crews to clean up the river. We just recently dredged the river. It was a government subsidized dredging of the river, and those things are really helpful. But just the human behavioral aspect of it, just why would you throw anything plastic in the river? Why would you throw bottles or bottle caps or Publix plastic bags and styrofoam? It's just incredibly horrific behavior, and I don't understand it. Listen, I've gotten into arguments with people because I see them off the back of my restaurant when they're passing by on their boats, and you know, stuff flies off their boat or they just throw it overboard. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then of course it makes me look like I'm the police and that I'm policing the. I'm just saying, man, just have common sense. Just have common sense. Who does that? It's horrible, horrible behavior, unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And look, you can only lead by example. So if you see someone doing it, I would hope that they would say the same thing. Hey, would you do me a favor and pick that up? That's not nice, or that's not okay. I mean, I find it to be a horrible quality, a horrible human quality to just throw things in the river or in the water. I'm sure Biscayne Bay has got horrible pollution and plastic and styrofoam and straws. You know, I had this thing, it was an initiative that we did on the Miami River. We did away with straws. No plastic straws. And it's because a lot of that ends up in the river. Mm-hmm. Of course. And it's terrible.
Yeah, if I can speak to that for a second too, I think a lot of times that the plastic pollution and debris that you're seeing in our bodies of water are coming down the storm drain system. So they're ending up in the street, maybe nowhere near the river or the bay, and then they get washed down the drain and they end up in the waterways where we see them collect. And it is a huge problem, and it's a very visible problem. And I want to also note that there's lots of sources of pollution that are harder to see as well, that are also, you know, contributing to the die-off of the seagrass and the decline of fisheries and things like that. And those include the septic tanks that we have over 100,000 of, especially just in Miami-Dade County, including in very urban areas around Biscayne Bay. We have sewage leaks. We use too much fertilizer and it ends up running off and going down the storm drains and ending up in the waterways. And actually Miami-Dade County is hearing a fertilizer ordinance next month, or they passed it on first reading this week. And next month it will go before the committee. So we're really hoping that that will become law for Miami-Dade County to limit fertilizer use. And also stormwater runoff, which I mentioned is more and more of a problem from sea level rise. So we're getting more debris like you're seeing in the river coming down the storm drains, and grease and oil and chemicals and pet waste and all these other things that are washing off the streets and ending up in our waterways. So we need to find a way to really catch and clean that water before it gets in to the Miami River or to Biscayne Bay.
Yes, and yes.
I know that we have I know we have a boat that comes up and down the river. It's called, I believe it's called the Scavenger.
Yeah,
and I know that it comes up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I really would love to stand in front of any county commissioner, any city commissioner. There's got to be a bigger budget for that boat to operate more hours a week or more hours you know, a month, because it does a good job, but I don't believe that it's out there enough. And I know that
getting it at the source and stopping the pollution before it's going down the storm drain system and getting into the water.
I was going
limiting
to
the use. Yeah.
Dr. Silverman, you're absolutely right. Definitely. I mean, we need to have all these solutions in place, but really the true thing that we need to do is educate the public that everything that we throw in our garbage and everything that we don't recycle is going to end up somewhere, because plastic pollution lasts forever, for so many years. So it's definitely a call for us to think about the importance of recycling. Mm-hmm. Dr. Silverstein, what do we need to do to restore the balance of the ocean? Because obviously it's in very bad shape.
That's a big question. How much time do we have? There's a lot of things we can do. So, you know, one of the main things is reducing carbon emissions so we can get climate change under control, because as you mentioned again in the story, the ocean is really the lungs of the planet. And it's creating a lot of oxygen and also soaking up a lot of the pollution that is creating climate change. So protecting the oceans is a key piece of helping us have the ability to take a breath. So that is really fantastic. I think we need to address a lot of the overfishing issues that you mentioned, and in US waters, federal fisheries are managed sustainably, which means that every year, you know, as Louise said, they're calibrating how many fish can be taken out of the environment safely so that we're not affecting the overall population. One of the issues that we still have in some fisheries, though, is bycatch. So when you're targeting lobster or stone crab or something else, and you accidentally catch something that you're not targeting, sometimes there's no market for those fish, but they don't survive the process. So that's called bycatch, and that's another issue as well. And some fisheries, like shrimp, for example, still have a lot of issues with bycatch. Although things have gotten a lot more sustainable, and there are a lot of mechanisms now to do things like avoid catching turtles by accident and things like that. And then also just improving the habitats like the coral reefs, the seagrasses, the mangroves that create the places for these animals to live in and around so that they can thrive and grow. And so making sure that we're doing construction around coral reefs really sustainably. We had a big issue with like the deepening and widening of the Port of Miami shipping channel, for example, where we think over 500,000 corals were illegally killed during that project that we're still working to get restored. And doing a lot of research, trying to figure out things like there's a major coral disease happening right now that's killed tens of millions of corals in Florida, and just trying to figure out how to stop that is a big piece too. But figuring out how to use the ocean, but to use it in a sustainable way that preserves it for future generations is really the critical thing.
Well, the whole series, our idea is for us to realize that the ocean is just a great provider. I mean, it's just giving us so much, and we have to protect it and to honor that. Luis, what percentage of restaurant business that I know that might be your friends are engaged in sustainable practice?
Oof, it's a good question. So honestly, I cannot speak for other restaurateurs. I have 3 or 4 of my good friends that I sell to, so I know that at least my seafood is sustainable, and I'm responsible for that, and I know that those guys are doing it right. And now I do know that there's a big problem with, you know, the way imported fish is a completely different conversation.
Yes.
Because I'm not quite certain that other countries have the powers to be in place to police and to monitor the overfishing, or even you know, catching other species while you're fishing for things, and monitoring those things and how much you can pull out of the water and not. So I can tell you locally, I think a lot of people think that they're doing it sustainably. Specifically when you are buying from certain purveyors who tell you that they do that, but you can never know for sure whether or not everyone's doing it the right way. I know that there are seafood markets, you know, specifically in like the Asian market, where I see way too much product, way too many there in a market in a way that I can't imagine that's being monitored or policed quite the way we do it in Miami. So I just feel that, look, I try to lead by example, and I try to do it the right way. And I hope that this series will hit home to many people, and that things will change for the better. So wow. This is an incredibly important thing that you're doing for our community, for our state, for people that live off the ocean. This is an incredible, it's like you're pointing like a laser beam at a very important subject. And once you brought it to my attention, I was like, this is very interesting. This is something I'd like to be a part of. Well, so I appreciate you.
You are amazing. I mean, you are doing an amazing job. And I think talk about the problems that we have in our different ecosystems. That is the answer. I mean, really, we need to focus on what we can do on the personal level. Focus on changing the behavior here inside, in our families, in our habits, in our personal communities, and then hope that this is going to replicate. And I truly hope that many more businesses, many more restaurant owners are actually going to follow your footsteps, because you are truly remarkable. And we are just so happy to meet you and to highlight your story, because it's
You know, I want to say something to you. I didn't know that I was doing anything other than the way I was taught, right? So I didn't realize what you were saying was me showing an example of the way we should be doing things, because that's how I was raised. That's how my dad raised me. That's how I'm raising my kids. I think the basis of this is that we need to, as human beings, we have to have responsibility toward our communities and be the leaders and say, hey, this is the way we have to do it, non-negotiable, and this is it. And otherwise, 20 years from now, my kids are not going to be able to have a seafood restaurant or a seafood business, or 30 years down. I just think that we need to show leadership right now and step up. You know, I do it all the time. You know, sometimes I get lazy, but I do it all the time. I tell my kids all the time, don't throw that there, pick it up, put it in the trash can. I mean, it's that simple.
You're truly awesome. And I love the story of your father, and to see the close connection that you have with him and with everything that he taught you and how you're following his footsteps is truly inspiring. You are awesome.
I appreciate it. I hope to see you guys in my restaurant soon.
Can't wait.
Sure. Dr. Silverstein, I would like to ask you one more question. So on the personal level, because we're talking about all the things that need to change, but on the personal level, what can we do, each one of us as individual, to protect our oceans?
Yeah, so one great thing is to support businesses like Garcia's that are doing things the right way and supporting sustainable seafood choices. And sometimes it can be hard as a consumer to know whether or not the seafood that you're buying is sustainable. So a good rule of thumb is to look for US wild caught seafood, because you know, as Louise mentioned, we are managing things really pretty well for US wild caught seafood, and we have less control over what's going on with imported seafood. So if you just look, if that's one thing you remember, it's actually a pretty good rule of thumb. You can also download an app. The Monterey Bay Aquarium has a seafood watch app, and before you buy seafood or you order it at a restaurant, you can actually look it up and see whether or not it's thought to be a sustainable option. So that's a great way that you can contribute by being you know, an informed consumer and supporting sustainable seafood. But I also just want to say what an incredible story it is, and what a beautiful heritage we have on the Miami River. With the fishing community on the river. And it's often, I think, not highlighted enough. So I want to thank you for highlighting that. And, you know, just understanding the connection between how we're developing in Miami, how we're upgrading our infrastructure, like our sewage system and our septic tanks, and how we're treating the land is having a direct impact on this amazing industry, that the water really belongs to all of us. And, you know, I would love to tell more of these stories, and I'm so glad that you're doing it, and I think it's so powerful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Silverstein, and thank you so much, Reef, for being here with us today, and especially for the amazing and impactful work that you are both doing. It was great to have this conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Muchas gracias. Gracias, Luis. Muchas gracias. It's so important that we recognize that the ocean is a living organism that provides critical resources for all of us. Today, we want to invite you to commit to our oceans, to take an oath, to make a commitment to protect it. The solutions are on the table, and we need your support to ensure we protect and preserve our oceans, the great provider. We believe we can make it together. So we want to invite you to go to www.oceanthegreatprovider.org and join us. Thank you, everyone. And tomorrow we'll see you again at the same time with another ocean story. Please join us.